Hey, what's going on, YouTube? Hey, so we've gotten a lot of news from the developers lately, so today we're going to break it down and see exactly what's going to change in Call of Dragons. So just at the start here, let me apologize for the lateness in this video. A couple things happened. First of all, I just kind of had the week from Mal here. Really long week at work, and then on top of that, my car needed maintenance, and then on top of that, my refrigerator broke, and so I had to deal with all that mess. Nothing too serious at the end of the day, but just distracted me, didn't leave me with a lot of free time. The other thing, of course, is that we're still like intense fighting in our KVK, right? We're in KVK 6, and our Zone 2 has been basically nonstop fighting, since the zone opened. You can see this is the front in Zone 2 right now. The north here, this is NM, there are allies. We're ED, we're in the south here. The northern shell here, this is ROG, and the southern shell is like the Sad Eyes Alliance. You can see it's fairly quiet at the moment, but been a ton of fighting in my KVK. And with all that fighting, just not enough time to put together a video. Really, I'm struggling to find the time between my job, between all my real life commitments and the KVKs to put together what I was hoping to put together every week. I think I'm probably going to shift to about 2 videos a week going forward. That seems just to be more sustainable long term. All right, so we've gotten a lot of updates from the developers just recently, and some of them are kind of surprising. So I just wanted to talk over my thoughts on them. And we'll start with the Call of Dragons developer Q&A. This came out 15 July, so a little while ago. Some stuff in here that I found interesting. First of all, we got increased token recovery from G1 to G3 heroes. Hey, that's good. I like that. If you invested in archers in season 1, but you don't play archers anymore, I like that a lot. So I'm glad to see that coming back. Small win there. Second question. Cavalry is really struggling, and we need more Cav Buffs.
Are you sure?
Cavs need buffs.
Are you sure?
Okay, I'm a Cav main, so I guess this is good news for me, but I kind of think this is pretty ridiculous. My Cavs perform very well. Lots of players' Cavs perform very well. I don't really think we need Cav buffs. I'm in, KVK 6 right now, right? So I can understand that on higher level KVKs, maybe the battlefield's more cluttered. Maybe you reach a situation like the Western Front of World War I, where you just literally run out of terrain to fight in which case Cav might be an issue. I don't think Cav needs buff. I think if anything, you could change the map up to make them a little bit more open field, give a little bit more space. Cav buffs, it's kind of ridiculous to me. All right. Better matchmaking. I like to see that. I actually think the matchmaking in our current season is really good, so I'm not currently on this issue here, but I do like them looking at matchmaking because that obviously is an issue going forward. Too many KVKs just end in Diplo wins. We know this. That's a problem for the game. So hopefully they can do something to sort of mitigate that problem. All right. Next thing here. This one I laughed at it the first time I saw it, but the more I think about it, I think this is actually pretty good, right? And basically this is, we want to penalize you more if your city gets rallied and defeated in the rally. Now, the way they phrase this is some players are farming merits by letting their cities get rallied. Look, I'm sure some people do that. That's not a problem. That's not anything they need to correct. However, there is something that happens that I do think this will help with. And that's when you have that Kraken player who will early in a zone just let themselves get bombarded with a tower, and then they just end up randomly, and sometimes they end up randomly behind enemy lines, and they're just too strong to be rallied effectively, and so they just act like a terrorist for the rest of the zone. I do think that is poor gameplay, and I would like to see them do something about this, and I think this helps, right? Because if you rally a city and you win that rally, it inflicts it's going to inflict a debuff on the enemy for some time. Maybe it makes their troops 15% weaker for a day or something like that. I think this is a really good idea. That way, if you have that player that bombs themselves behind your lines, you can do a quad rally or whatever on them, and maybe you don't get the best trade, whatever, but you cripple them for a time, and if they're that strong, that's going to really that'll impact the rest of that zone. So I do think this is an interesting idea. I'm happy to see this. All right. Mana villages, the villages system, I think it's gotten so much better. The fact that all your villages are shared across the warband, I think that's good. As an administrator in my realm, villages used to be a huge pain. Honestly, I don't find them a pain anymore. Okay, so the next thing they talk about is sort of the length of time between pass openings and when combat begins. There is some of that, particularly in the larger zones. Both sides will build buff, obviously, pretty soon after the zone opens. But, it usually is, I don't know, 2 to 4 hours, depending on the size of the zone, between the time when the pass opens and the time when real combat begins. I mean, okay, but like that's just part of the game. That's part of the strategy when you do the Darkland event and try and set up the timing as best you can. I don't really see this as a big issue. I do not want a permanent build buff in like Dragon Zone or anything like that. The build buff system they have right now, I think, is pretty good. I hope they don't seriously mess that up. All right, the last thing I really want to talk about here is this cosmetic thing, as you get additional city themes. Here's my thing with this, all right? If it's truly just cosmetic, if you pay more or you play more, whatever, and you get some fancy new skin that makes you look cooler, and that's all that it does, I'm 100% in favor of that. Let's do that. However, if it also gives you a permanent combat buff, no. We already have too many pay-to-win things in the system already. We do not need more pay-to-win features, right? So if it's like you pay more or you play more and you get cosmetic buffs, pay to look pretty, let's do that. No more pay-to-win features, please. Okay, and what I think is the more interesting thing here is the 1.0.51 patch notes, Stars Entwined. This goes live 7/23, so a couple days from this video is being released. And we'll go with these. The first thing we have here is our 2 new Archer heroes, right? These are the first G6 heroes we have. We have Kulk here, pretty standard marksman PvP precision. He's going to be your wheel hero. And take note of these X's he's holding. We'll talk about those in just a second here. The second hero we have is Myrla. I'm probably saying that wrong. I'll probably say it wrong for as long as Call of Dragons is a game I play. She's your rally hero. We expected one of those. She's going to be your strongest Lord hero. Some people are kind of very interested in she has the tank tree. I actually don't think it's that interesting, right? She is the rally hero, and it is fairly common for rally heroes to have the tank tree. Now, this is the first time we've had an archer with the tank tree, but obviously we've had plenty of infantry, and also Cav rally leaders have the tank tree. So she's probably going to have a skill that's related to like just survivability. Okay, that's fine. You're probably not going to put many points in the tank tree regardless of how you build her. So it is what it is, but I don't think like people that are saying, oh my god, she's a tank. No, she's not. You're going to play these archers like you play normal archers. But since they're the new generation, you'd expect them to be more powerful than the generations that came before them. Okay, so let's look at the artifact here. Kind of interesting that it's an axe for marksman heroes, sort of like aesthetically off plan, but the graphics don't really matter. The one thing that's interesting here is this artifact does seem to be the thing that Kulk is holding, and the reason that matters is traditionally what they do is they release 2 new heroes and they release an artifact and a war pet to go with them. The artifact synergizes with one of the heroes, and the war pet tends to synergize with the other hero. And so it is my bet that this artifact will have some passive effect that synergizes very well with Kulk, and then the war pet here, the Toxosaur, will have some effect that synergizes most commonly with Myrla. That's a bet. We'll know more going forward, but if you're only planning on building one of the heroes, you should expect, if you're going to build Kulk, to build the axe, and if you're going to build Myrla, to build the Toxosaur. All right. Now, obviously, most new heroes when released together work very well together, so it is typically recommended to try and do both, but obviously not everyone can afford to do both. Okay. The other thing I'll note with some sadness is both the pet and the heroes, it doesn't appear like they fly. We don't know for sure right now, but based on their graphics, you wouldn't expect them to fly. Now, sometimes the hero graphics, it's a little misleading. Like Bertrand, for example, doesn't look like he could fly, but then he rides a Pegasus. This Toxosaur, however, it's hard to see how this guy would fly. So that's sad to me. I'm always advocating for more flying heroes, more flying war pets. Since Generation 2, in Generation 2, we got a new flying, Cav hero, a new flying Archer Commander, a new flying Mage Commander, and war pets to go with it. We have had 0 generational heroes that fly. Now, obviously, they inserted a couple of overall heroes, Bayhorn and Selûne, to help, the flying gameplay. I'd like to see more flying heroes. I say that all the time, and it appears to me Generation 6 is not going to, satisfy that ask from me. It is what it is. Okay. So the next thing we got is the Stars Entwined event. It's like the Valentine's Day event, but in the summer. Like, I'll be honest, I could care less about this. Moving on, it is what it is. Okay. Then we have Roots of War League Season 2, beginning mid-August. Now, this is kind of interesting. They've introduced a lot of new mechanics in Roots of War, and honestly, they still need to work out the bugs on some of these mechanics. and this is beginning pretty quickly here. You'd think they'd first give more time for themselves just to work out the bugs, and second, like give more time for players to understand the new tactics and strategies. But it is what it is. I'm glad to see Roots of War League coming back. That is a lot of fun. So okay, I'm glad to see it coming back. Okay, so the next thing let's talk about is Symphony of the Gods KVK. Okay. The first thing is that this KVK is the camp system. Now, I used to be a big advocate of the camp system, and then basically, a number of like servers figure out a way to exploit the camp system to get cheap, Diplo wins. We know who we're talking about here. No need to go into that right now. They've largely fixed that. Now, like Diplo wins are still a problem in this game, but in my opinion, they're not like as a result of the camp system. So the camp system is what it is. No issues there. Okay, let's talk about the mechanics. The first mechanic we have is the return of the portal system. The portal system was awful last time. The reason it was awful is that like certain camps basically could not fight unless a portal was up for portions of the season, which is a big miss. I think portals can be fine, but hopefully they figured out the flaws from the portals last time. So last time it was a big miss. We'll see how it goes this time. Okay. The next two mechanics are like, fine, but nothing special. I can provide level 5 units for my allies. Okay, so if I don't feel like fighting, I guess I can give my allies some additional infantry or cav units or whatever. Whatever. I'm not like, that doesn't seem like fun, but it's not like a downside. We also have the artifact variant system. The last time they did this, it was fine. It wasn't anything amazing. It'll probably be the same thing again, right? Nothing like that's going to detract from gameplay, I think, but it's not amazing either. Whatever. Okay. Then we have this Bastion mechanic. This Bastion mechanic is really, really kind of, let's talk about it, Okay, so here's what the banner says. We can build more Bastions by occupying behemoth layers. And then we also get the construction buff to increase all alliance buildings. Huh. Okay, so let's talk about this. And in fact, let's go to the patch notes to see some more details about this additional Bastion thing here. Okay, here are the patch notes. And when I first read this Bastion thing, I was like, oh, this is terrible. I still don't think it's good, but maybe it's less bad than I first thought. Okay, so we can build multiple line siege Bastions. So Bastions are terrible. I wish they'd removed them from the game, but they seem to be going the other way. However, let's read this text, right? So to build in a Bastion, I have an extra requirement. I need, whatever the technology, right, that all the Alliance shells have. I need to occupy the layer of Behemoth that ults the Bastion capacity buff, and that's stackable. Okay, so this means that the number of Bastions I can build is not like one per shell. It's basically the number of like Behemoth layers I occupy. Okay, that's actually kind of interesting. That disincentivizes me to bring in more and more shells, which was frankly a problem and an administrative headache, and instead just occupy more Behemoth layers. So if I start out at 0 and then I get basically +1 for every Behemoth layer I occupy, okay, now that's still kind of probably going to mean more Bastions on average, but maybe it's not every Behemoth layer. Maybe it's only certain Behemoth layers like, I don't know, the Hydras and the Necro Giants, etc. give you a Bastion buff, but like the Bears don't. If that's true, that's not bad. That means I have to concentrate everything into one shell, or, just maybe 1 or 2 shells instead of bringing, 6, 7, 8 shells to a KVK to get that extra Bastion there. So this actually might not be terrible, okay? Now, we're going to have to see how it plays out. If this is basically like you concentrate everything into one shell and you get the same or less Bastions, I think this is a big win. If, on the other hand, this results in lots more Bastions in the KVK, this is terrible. The second thing is this does seem to have a snowball effect. If you're winning, this makes you win harder. Oh, okay, I guess. That'll make KVKs go quicker. Sometimes KVKs should go quicker. So like, for example, the first alliance that captures the dragon should get an additional Bastion, right? Well, that'll help them lock in the dragon, which means that like, the final zone gets decided in like a day or two quicker than it usually does. Okay, let's talk about the second part of this, Boundless Bastions. This seems to be misnamed, right? Because at a certain point, we get a permanent build speed and max build speed of all alliance buildings. This does not appear to be related just to Bastions. I think this is a terrible idea. A permanent build buff. This seems to be maybe related to the like, hey, it takes too long to touch tips in the final zone or whatever problem. Look, that's not a problem. Regarding Bastions specifically, I hate this. the best time to kill a Bastion is when it's under construction, because if you kill it under construction, you only have to kill it one time. If you kill it once it's already built, you have to kill it at least 3 times. Now, if the Alliance uses their powerful long-term, like 2-day long cooldown to build buff their Bastion, that's an important strategic choice, right? But if they just have a permanent build buff and it's easy to get these Bastions up when they're being, when they're first being built and you can't kill them very easily, oh, it's terrible, all right? So bottom line, this part, build multiple Alliance Siege Bastions, maybe, we'll see, could be okay, could be bad, we're going to have to tell. The second part here, Boundless Bastions, which really just means permanent build buff at a certain point in the season, that seems really bad to me. I guess we'll see, but I'm not very optimistic about that one. Now, one last thing about this, my server is unlikely to be the first, in the first server groups that can choose this new KVK system. I hope that's true, because I want to see other KVKs go through this and see, is it like, okay, there really are limited bastions and it's fine, or like every shell's got 12 bastions and it's just endless bastion warfare. Because there is a scenario in which that's the case. The strength of Call of Dragons really is the open field warfare, and I don't want to encourage the developers to move away from this. This is right now a seasonal mechanic. If it's fine, it's fine. But if it's bad, we don't want them implementing the seasonal mechanic into like the generic KVK. And so if this is a bad mechanic, like this is a KVK that I might advocate skipping, to hopefully send them the message that we don't want more Bastions, we want more open field fighting. Anyway, that's all I got for you today. And until next time, you stay classy, Belleron.